This is upon further review from USCHO. And here's your host, Ed Trefsker.
Welcome to Upon Further Review for Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. I'm Ed Trefsker alongside Jim Connolly and Derek Schooley. This is where we get to something we didn't have room for in our Monday podcast episode. We're sponsored by the NCAA Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. Get your tickets at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Well, we're just 5 weeks into the season, maybe 6 for some, and we've already seen some significant players go down and some high-end players. And certainly there are a lot more we don't know about. In fact, before I read the list, I will point out, one, it's not like the NHL where you've got to report who's injured. And two, a lot of players who are injured don't get reported publicly unless maybe somebody at a press conference says, hey, we haven't seen so-and-so in the lineup. Is he injured or something like that? But some big names already. Cole Iserman at BU, Aiden Fink at Penn State, Henry Muse at Michigan. That's a season-ending injury. At BC, Andre Gasso and Oscar Jelvik are out, and Max Burkholder at CC. That's just a few. I'm sure you could find some others. But that brings us into question about the whole House versus NCAA settlement and schools opting in. These are big names, but no doubt other teams have got 1, 2, 3 players injured or maybe something that's nagging a little bit. And so that brings back into the spotlight the roster limits associated with this. Some coaches have talked about, hey, there should be an exception for goalies. And Derek, you were explaining to us as we were preparing for this episode that there are ways that you can have more than 26 on the roster, even if your program is opted into the settlement. Robert Morris University has opted in, but you're not dealing with a strict 26-person roster. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, and then we can see how these limits may be affecting teams.
There's a couple things. First of all, you talked about, I'll go a little point by point that you talked about there. There are rules that we're not allowed to announce some injuries. Some schools are not allowed to, by law, not announce injuries. So there's some people that are probably have long-term injuries that are not allowed to announce them. So there are some of those out there as well. But there's a thing called right now, when the House was settlement and roster limitations were announced, they came up with a compromise called a DSA, or designated student athlete. And I'm going to read word for word what that is. A DSA, designated student athlete, is a student athlete who was on a college athletic roster during the 24-25 academic year, or was recruited to be on a roster the 25-26 year before April 7th, 2025, and whose spot would have been affected by new roster limits. The designation exempts them from counting towards the new sport-specific roster limits for the duration of their eligibility, providing them with protected roster spots and or scholarship or walk-on spots. So what it means is they were going to come here. They potentially could have lost their roster spot, and they're protected. You can't cut them because of the House limits. Now, you could have cut them because of any other limitation, because of hockey, but they keep that limitation if they go to another school. So we may have a player that was at a different school that came here, and he has a DSA tag, and now he is at our school, and he doesn't count towards our limitation. So you could potentially have up to 31, 32, 33 players on your roster that have those tags. We are carrying 29 players, but we have 26 roster spots. Eventually, you will lose these players as they graduate off your roster, and you will then be at your 26-man limit eventually. So right now we are at a 26-person roster, but we do have some what we call DSAs. Some of them are players that are playing in our hockey games. It doesn't mean anything different. It was just a way to manage your roster, keep them on your roster. I didn't want to have to get rid of players. We were forced to. And we had real conversations with these players and said, hey, we don't want to have to drop from 29 players. We're being forced to, but this is a way to keep you on our team, keep you on our scholarship, and keep you here at Robert Morris. And here you are, and you're a contributing member of our team. Don't hold this against us. It's just we have to do this to keep you here. And here we are.
So if I listen to that all, Derek, if coaches plan correctly, nobody should really be impacted this season by roster limits.
If you didn't want to, now
is that right?
You could have, as a school, you could have said, we are going to 26 no matter what.
Right.
I know of a school that has told me that we're carrying 25 players this year. We're going to leave 26 spot open just in case we need to add somebody at Christmas because of injuries. I've also been told that school has told me we're carrying 26 no matter what. So it just depends on your administration. There have been teams that have opted in that are carrying 31 players. It just depends on where you want to be as an institution and as a program. So it's a school by school decision. So we also talked in pre-production. Mike Hastings on October 25th, Todd Maluski had a tweet. Eli Pulver was day-to-day, and they were practicing with 2 goalies at Wisconsin. Mike Hastings, in his press conference, said, we've got to fix this, that we were only practicing with 2 goalies with the roster limitations. It's something that we are working on. What if that goalie was out for the season? How do we manage that? So it is something that other coaches are dealing with, are concerned with, are talking about. And like, for example, you talked about Henry Muse with the season-ending injury. Right there, that drops Michigan down to 25 players. How do you handle that? Maybe you should be allowed to replace somebody mid-year and not able to designate somebody. I don't know the answer to it, but we are dealing with it. And this is something we talked about a couple times last year. And we will see its ugly head reared as the season goes on if teams are playing light numbers. Where it's going to change, it's not going to change if Robert Morris is playing with less players. It's going to change if you see some of the Big Ten, the power programs playing with less players. If you're going to see players playing, somebody playing with 9 forwards and 5D, that's where you're going to see potentially where you can add an extra player or two. If somebody's dressing 2 goalies, has a goalie with a season-ending injury, that's where you're going to see a change.
Yeah, I guess that's where that's where some of the gray area comes in too, right? The way you kind of explained it, Derek, with the designation, it feels like any coach should be able to, if they plan things right before the season, have depth. But you get into a position like goaltending where you only roster 3, 1, maybe, gosh, what if 2 went down? Now you only have 1 goaltender left. You can't even dress 2. How do you add a player? You don't have a mechanism right now to add the player. But I also hear so many coaches in schools, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the NCAA waiver process, it feels like there's a lot of waivers that are granted in a given year. It feels like this is just ripe for, hey, we need to apply for a waiver here. But what are you hearing on that?
Of any waivers that are going to be where you're getting is the reason that there's 26 is because you can offer 26 scholarships. So you're offering 26 scholarships. So that's why the number's 26. If you're given 26 scholarships, where do you get a waiver for a 27th player? So I think that's the question mark, and that's where you're leaving yourself open. And I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know how it's going to take. I've always said I think 26, the number was too low. I think I've said it here on this program last year. Not this program because this Wednesday's new. I think I said it on our Monday program numerous times. I thought 26 was too low. I think 27 27 still might be low. 28 might be I could live with 28. I like 29 for the number, but I don't know. I think you're going to see if you did the DSAs and you did some, you shouldn't really have to worry about the number 26. If you DSA'd a freshman or two, you shouldn't have to worry about it for 4 years. You could have
Right.
27 or
Right.
28
That
for 4 years.
that
And
that's
then
going
in
through my
4
head.
years, maybe
I'll
that you
kick
kick the can down the road a
bit.
little bit, and hopefully they see the number of 26 being a little bit low, and then the number is 27, 28 by the time you've dealt with the DSAs getting there. That's my hope.
I will go back to one thing that Rand Pecknall told me maybe 2-3 years ago, Quinnipiac coach. And this was actually related to the transfer portal. He said he liked to keep a smaller roster because that's less unhappy players that could transfer out. That was an interesting approach, but I can see why a coach, when they hear the number 26, if you also have that mentality of we want to keep our players happy, maybe 26 feels like a better number. The injury bug, especially when it comes to goaltenders, that's where I worry the most about it.
I had that. Somebody told me the 26 keeps people happy. It also depends on your institution, because nobody says you got to go to 26 scholarships. I mean, a lot of these teams that are are going to 26, 27, 28 players are still keeping 18 scholarships. So not everybody goes to a full scholarship program. They're still at their 18 scholarship limit. So I think that those are the things that people are looking at.
A quick word from our sponsor, the NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. So I've got a question that came up when you told us about the DSAs. Does that make a DSA more valuable on the transfer portal market? Because that means they don't take up a roster spot in the 26, since that stays with them.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, I think not really. It could, but I don't think it does. I mean, if you want a player, you're going to find a place for a player no matter what. I mean, if they're good enough, they're good enough. In theory, yeah, I guess so, but nobody really. It is what it is.
Okay.
But I mean, why?
It's a moving target for sure.
At the end of the day, if you're a DSA, I mean, you're a DSA. I mean, I mean, I don't know. In theory, maybe, but who knows? I guess it's you're just trying to figure things out of your roster management. It's all roster management. That's what it comes down to.
Money management too, because there are scholarship dollars that go along.
So if we had a situation where maybe we could exempt the position of goalie and say, okay, you can carry a fourth goalie on your roster, or you can add a goalie if you lose one, would that be enough to take care of the problem? Or are you still in a situation where you're down a couple of defensemen and then a third one goes down and you're down to 5? I mean, is that still going to be a problem, or is it the biggest problem with goaltending?
I feel like if you solve the goaltending problem, you'd solve a big chunk of this. But I don't say that from a coach's perspective. I say it, in the media, somewhat of a fan. But it seems, at least on a realistic level, if you solve the goalie problem, that takes a lot out.
That maybe if you took it and you said if you brought somebody, maybe make a change at semester. I wouldn't say carry 4 goalies, because you could maybe add one at semester, replace one at semester, and that person's done it couldn't come back second semester. And the only reason I say that, and I'll always go back to this, cost. The position of goaltender is the most expensive position because of the cost of equipment. And people are gonna always look to when you add things of cost of things. So you're going to look at the cost of goalie equipment, the cost of pads. You're going to look at the cost of a mask. You're going to look at the cost of of all of that. So if you're going to say, okay, then give one, take one, and if one's got to be deemed ineligible for the whole second semester, you can bring one in the second semester. But that doesn't
even if you do that,
solve the problem if somebody gets hurt in the middle of the semester.
Yeah, and what about this? Even if you have somebody ineligible for the rest of the second semester, and then everybody's healthy, and now you have 4 healthy goalies, none of whom are seniors, and you've got to then be in a situation where maybe you've got to cut somebody, and maybe it's somebody that you brought in for one semester. I mean, that's not a situation a coach is going to like either, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess there are certainly roadblocks to everything, but I think just having the ability, if you got into a situation where you had an emergency situation and you had to pull somebody off a club team or pull them off a JV if you still have JV teams, whatever, just the ability, the mechanism to add a player if you are in a position that you only had one healthy goaltender. You can't start a game with one healthy goaltender, and it's you've got to have 2. So if you're in a position that you don't have one and there's no mechanism to add one, I guess that's when we have the issue. We haven't seen it yet, but if it rears its ugly head, then a decision is going to have to be made.
Well, we're going to wrap it up for right now, right there. Don't forget, you can see us on YouTube at youtube.com/USCHO. Like and subscribe there if you would, please. Also, our sponsor is the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets. For Jim Connolly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefsker, and this has been Upon Further Review.